I had a talk with my friends about it, and I was kind of thinking, like, man, if something like that was to happen to me, I legitimately don't know if I would have even really known to stop and call. Like, I wouldn't know if that was like my responsibility to do. Again, not to say that Kyren Lacy is a bad person. We're all human. We all make mistakes. But I just hope it serves as a reminder to people that, really be intentional with what you're doing and really make sure that you don't put yourself in a position to possibly, lose everything that you've been working really, really hard for. Hey, what's up, YouTube? So obviously, if you're tuned in to LSU football, you've seen the unfortunate events that happened with wide receiver Kyren Lacy. If you don't know who Kyren Lacy is, he's a wide receiver from Thibodaux, Louisiana, obviously having a standout season this year. A little controversy as well, but I think it's very minuscule compared to what just happened, obviously. If you don't know about that controversy, though, it was kind of like about Kyren Lacy, like, shooting guns at the crowd after he, scored a touchdown, improper celebration type of thing. But, I mean, obviously, while maybe not the celebration that I would go to or that I would advise anyone to go to, at the end of the day, probably not that bad, but definitely does send the wrong image to, younger people watching or even older people watching. Overall sets the wrong image for himself, but again, not that bad in the grand scheme of things. But to talk about what just happened, Kyren Lacy was involved in a hit and run that unfortunately ended up causing the loss of life of somebody. First and foremost, RP to the man who lost his life in this situation. That's obviously sad. And, ultimately nobody wants anything like that to happen. And this is why it's important to, drive as safe as you can, be a defensive driver. I know we all like to, get in our cars, go fast, vroom, switch lanes, all the things that people always like to say, but ultimately put your safety first. It's really not that important to go fast, especially when going super fast can end up causing someone a lot of hurt, loss of life when it could have been avoided. Initially, when I heard this happen, I thought Kyren Lacy really just either hit a person straight up or hit a car, which if that was the case, I think ultimately there's no excuse for that. Applying more research and hearing more things, I realized that that's not all the way exactly what happened. From the knowledge that I've gathered, I've heard it was more like Kyren Lacy was driving, he switched lanes in a no pass zone, and then ultimately ended up causing another vehicle to wreck into another one. Obviously I think the situation reminds you of the Henry Ruggs thing a lot. I think that one was a lot different because of kind of how it happened, with Henry Ruggs being drunk, obviously driving super, super recklessly. And ultimately, all those decisions also leading to a person losing their life, and RP to that lady as well. But when you hear kind of the whole story of what happened to Kyren Lacy, you think, oh, this isn't really the same. It's definitely some fault in it on his part for sure, but I don't think it's exactly the same, to be honest. I do honestly think it should be some sort of punishment for doing something like that, but I don't know if passing in a no pass zone kind of equates to a hit and run, because I mean, just look at what the crime is: hit and run. He didn't hit anybody, but it definitely should be some sort of reckless driving, if anything. I had a talk with my friends about it, and I was kind of thinking man, if something like that was to happen to me, I legitimately don't know if I would have even really known to stop and call. I wouldn't know if that was my responsibility to do. Now, obviously, morally, I do think that, if you see somebody's hurt and you think you caused it, the right thing to do would be, call the police, call the ambulance, see what you could do. But I don't know if that would be my responsibility. I also remember in this class of ethical issues of healthcare, one time there was this case where these kids came across this guy drowning, and obviously morally the right thing would have been to help them, but instead of doing that, they recorded him, they laughed at him, and unfortunately that dude actually ended up drowning and losing his life. And obviously that caused public outrage when people seen the video, these kids just basically let this man pass. When it came down to it and they went to court, they told them that, even though this is morally wrong, obviously we really can't do anything to them. I forgot what the law was, but it basically said if like someone else is in need, you aren't like obligated to help them. Like you don't have to help them, except if you're like a doctor or a nurse or something like that. I think like depending on your occupation, like you have to like help in some type of way if you had the skills. I've heard that, but can't confirm it, so like don't nail me to the cross if that's not like all the way true. But I have heard something like that, like if you're a nurse or a doctor, like technically you are supposed to help if somebody's in need. But obviously Kyren Lacy doesn't fit under the criteria of being a nurse or a doctor. Neither do I. So I'm thinking like in that moment, if that happened to me, would I really have known to stop? Then there are other various factors that we don't know. I mean, he could have had the music loud. I think it was nighttime. Does he even see it? Does he have somebody in the car with him? There's a lot of factors that could have caused him legitimately not to notice if he was like really like more involved in what he was doing than paying attention to the road, which obviously is not an excuse, but I do think you have to think about all those things before you just, you know, claim he's just such a bad person. You claim that just doesn't care about other people. You know, it's definitely like a big shame, because I think at least we all know that he probably would have got a shot in the NFL. Even if he didn't become like this super big standout star, I think he would have at least got a shot, probably, you know, change his family's life or his for the better. But ultimately, you know, of the consequences of this case, you know, he might not get that shot. And that's why it's just so important to just make sure, especially when you're somebody who has the opportunity, but not even when you have that opportunity, just a person in general, to make sure that, you know, you really don't, you know, put yourself at jeopardy for nothing. Because honestly, driving in a way that you wouldn't notice this, driving in a way that would cause this, is a choice. And that's something that could easily be avoided. Again, not to say that Kyren Lacy is a bad person. We're all human. We all make mistakes. But I just hope it serves as a reminder to people that, you know, really be intentional with what you're doing and really make sure that you don't put yourself in a position to possibly, you know, lose everything that you've been working really hard for. I don't want to say that I hope like that, you know, Kyren Lacy gets off or whatever, because obviously it's somebody who lost their life and their family probably has feelings about that. But I do hope that whatever is fair and justice and fair in what happened happens. And I hope he doesn't get, you know, a cruel and unusual punishment. I hope that whatever happens to him is fair. And also I hope that the other family, you know, gets the clarity and peace of mind that I know that they are looking for right now. Once again, RIP to the person who lost their life in this incident. Definitely unfortunate event. Really, condolences to the family. Also, once again, hope Kyren Lacy gets a fair punishment, and I hope that, you know, they don't see him as, you know, young black kid and just, you know, nail him to the cross and railroad him. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you for watching today. Hopefully you'll check out some of my other videos. Don't get snatched.